Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes. Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Williams. Good to see you. We're just going to dig right in, but I like to kick it up with a warm-up exercise. So, how many of you are parents of first-year students? Nice. Welcome. Very glad to see you. Second-year students. Got some? Very good. Do we have any juniors and seniors in the room? Yes. All right.
Okay.
Very, very good. Wonderful. Full house. Okay. So, we're gonna talk for a few minutes. I'll do about 15 minutes, and my colleague Gretchen will do about 15 minutes, and then we're going to open the floor to questions. We don't have mics to pass, so we're going to repeat your questions. So if you can't hear, we usually can hear, but if we if it's challenging for folks in the room, we'll repeat the question. Okay, but let me begin by welcoming everybody to this beautiful day at Williams College. It's, of course, like this every year and all year long. And we're glad that you could be here to enjoy it with us. As I mentioned, I'm joined by my colleague Gretchen, who's the dean of the college, and the Frederick Rudolph 42 class of 1965 professor of American culture, which is really a mouthful. Yes, and has served as dean of the college for the last couple of years. And so we're each going to sort of give you a few remarks about our sort of from where we sit, our vantage point on what this year is like and what it's like to be a college student. I'm going to do the sort of presidential bird's eye view, and then I think Gretchen will do a little bit more of the what her office sees and thinks about from the perspective of students. We tilt a little to, I think, first-year students, just because those folks have never heard from us before in this capacity. But of course, we'll be taking questions from everyone on your own path through and wherever you are in that journey. And I think we say every year, so I'll just say it again, we're quite empathetic. We're not just have been in the business of educating college students, both of us for a very long time now, but we also both have college students as children. So we go through this process as parents as well. We have sat there watching people like us talk, and so we know a little bit what the journey is like from the perspective of parents as well. I have a daughter right now who's a junior. I have a son who's graduated from another institution. My daughter's also at another institution, not here. That would be bad. Okay. I want to do what I do every year, which is just start with a couple of highlights from this year, some of which you've probably heard about, some of which you may, or you've actually physically seen, some of which is perhaps not visible, but I just like to give parents a kind of a sense of what's happening on the campus at any given moment. So I'll start with one I hope you've seen, although you might not have known what it is. There is on the campus right now the Pluriverse Pavilion. That is a newly built structure outside of Hopkins Hall, between Hopkins Hall and the Congregational Church. I know it sounds a little like a dimensional portal from one of the Matrix movies with that name. But that structure was built by Josepina Forte, who's an assistant professor of architecture and environmental studies here at Williams. And the structure was one that she put together out of a class project with her students from a fall 2023 course, Design for the Pluriverse. And the idea was to create a structure that was open to multiple ways of being in the world. That was sort of the question they took up as a design topic in the course. It's actually, I think, a really good metaphor for what we want Williams to be and what it is when it's at its best. I like to think, actually, after they came up with the name Pluriverse, I started to think of all the different kinds of pluriverses we have at Williams, from a library carol to an athletic field to a performance stage. I think I invite you all to go take a look at it and to sit inside it. There's some pillows there, but most importantly, there are panels. And as you go around and read about how the students conceptualized it, what design theories they used, their commitment to sustainability, actually, you'll start to see sort of architecture as interdisciplinary learning and as a liberal arts education. And we've had other structures on campus built by architectural courses before, but it gives you a sense of the ways in which experiential learning can be lived on the campus. And speaking of new things on the campus, new physical things, for those of you who have been here before, I hope you've noticed a number of very colorful chairs scattered around campus. I'm going to do a shout out to Gretchen for this. For every year I've been here, I kept asking the question, we have these beautiful lawns, but there's no place to sit. Where's everybody sitting? And now what you'll see, thanks actually to the generous donation of a parent from a prior year, we now have these colorful Adirondacks chairs and picnic tables. And I mentioned them, it's been a stunning fall here weather-wise, and it's just been really wonderful to see students enjoying the outdoors that way. Of course, we do this in Mountain Day and hiking and through our incredible outdoor club, which has, I think, something like 800 students who have membership in it, et cetera. But it has just been neat to see this year a new way of enjoying one of the pleasures of being in a rural liberal arts college in the middle of nowhere in those chairs. A couple of other new things that I can mention from this fall that I wanted to see, one that you won't see because it's a little bit distant from campus, but we opened our new boathouse, which is about a half an hour from here because, of course, boathouses have to be near water, and we don't have that right here on the campus. So in Pittsfield, we cut the ribbon on that. But I mentioned it because it gives me the opportunity to do a shout out to our Williams women's crew team, which traveled to Boston to compete in the Head of the Charles this week, and that's a regatta with one of the largest number of entries in the world, and the Williams team placed third in the regatta, the varsity team. Thank you. Yes. Very exciting, and I think that's the first time we've medaled at the race since 2018, so it was really exciting, and I'd like to say it's all thanks to the new field house, to the new boathouse, but probably they were pretty good without the boathouse, but the boathouse definitely has become a wonderful space for the team to practice and has really energized the community there, and we brought back the alumni crew teams to come celebrate the ribbon cutting a few weeks ago, which was another really exciting and wonderful event. Speaking a little bit of both races and exciting events, you might have heard there's election in the world around us right now, and obviously the most important thing for us to do on a campus is when an election, every year, but particularly presidential years, but we do this every year around elections, is both encourage turnout and engage in education around some of the issues, thanks to our political science department, our economics department, our history department, the Center for Learning and Action. You just saw, some of you saw Paula Consolini speaking. So we do a number of things to prepare students for moments like this. Most importantly, I think actually is our student volunteer organization, EAF Votes, which is a Get Out the Vote organization on campus, partisan or multi-partisan, with this goal to encourage people to register to vote wherever they live and to help them figure out and navigate what it means to be living someplace they don't vote if they're voting from afar. And so I think EVOS has about 60 volunteers that work on programming across the campus to encourage not only voting but also education. So they sponsored debate watching panels for both the vice presidential debate and the presidential debate on campus in Paresky, where students turned out to watch. And also a number of programs. We've had, for example, Carrie Ann Baker from Smith College speaking about the 2024 elections and the place of women's rights within them. We have the vice president of political studies at the Niskanen Center, which is a Washington, D.C. based think tank, talking about the evolution from a historical perspective of the Republican Party. And right after the election, I think will be very interesting in this room. We have the international best-selling author and columnist Anand Giridharadas. I don't think I pronounced that right, actually, but I have read his book, which is really powerful about sort of influence and conversation and engaging difficult issues and creating change, overcoming division, and how people make, resist, and grapple with change. And he's coming here to Williams right after the election and will be in an open forum conversation with me, which will hopefully have students help make sense of things that are going on in the world around them. Beyond politics, we have so many other things going on. Just a little sampling from this week. I was able to attend a talk by Rima Abdul Malik, who just stepped down as the Minister of Culture in France. It was a banner week for me. I went to another lecture by Professor Susan Neiman, who's the director of the Einstein Forum in Potsdam, who is speaking on leftist politics and sort of written a famous and provocative book called Left is Not Woke. Next Friday, we'll be able to attend the Berkshire Symphony Orchestra, which is this year auditioning a new conductor. And this is actually wonderful if your students are interested in learning a little bit about music. Each one of our 4 concerts this year has a visiting conductor coming in as the department tries to figure out who's going to be the new conductor for the Berkshire Symphony. And so we have visitors each of the major concerts this year, including next Friday. And tonight, of course, I encourage everybody to go to the Zambezi Marimba Band concert, which is among the most fun concerts that we do. And we do a lot of fun concerts on campus where you can listen to them. And I challenge you not to start dancing in the aisles. You will, I think, be invited to dance in the aisles at one point or another, but that is really a lot of fun. So in short, campus is buzzing on many fronts. There's too much to do, so I hope your students are picking judiciously among them, because amidst all of that, they're, of course, doing the important work of taking classes, doing research projects, competing in sports activities, performing. I just heard Cabin Bells is putting on a production of Chicago this semester, et cetera. So there's a lot to choose from, and actually I think Gretchen will be coming in on the side of thinking about how to support them as they make hard choices, because it's really important actually that students keep some kind of balance amidst all of the really wonderful opportunities available for them. First and foremost, of course, we're focused on empowering them in their intellectual journey here. That's Williams at its best, the small classes, the high number of faculty and staff to student, which keep the ratio there small. And I hope you're hearing stories of students working closely with faculty, getting to know some of them, doing research projects that are inspiring them. I was just talking this morning to a student who was telling me about a video art class he was doing and how he had just put together a video piece on the cows at Stone Hill behind the Clark, and the story was about motherhood. It was a story about the cows and their calves that he had turned into a video on motherhood. So there's in those experiential learning and in-class learning, we hope students are getting a wide range of opportunities to learn and to grow as they work their way through their fall classes. Some of you have heard me talk before, and I may have even said this if you were at the beginning lecture with me in the fall as you were dropping off your first-year students, those of you who are first-year parents. I always say this every year, but I encourage you not to ask them how their classes are going, but rather tell me something you've read. Tell me a project you're working on, something you've learned. Those questions are the ones that I think will help you get more deeply into the curricular experience, and even better, what's something you thought about something you read, but that may be even next level question. I think my husband and I always have asked our kids this and have found that those questions, if you ask how it's going, usually what you hear is it's hard, and it's probably hard. But if you ask what is something you've learned or read, you will, I think, immediately have that wonderful experience of understanding what the curricular journey here is a little bit like, and it can be actually pretty inspiring as parents. So I like to say that at Williams what we do is we offer the very best, I believe, liberal arts education available in the country. The very best generalist liberal arts education available in the country. We've been doing that for decades, actually longer than that. And in doing that, we are teaching students to think and to problem solve and to be lifelong learners and to train themselves for whatever is coming next. To do that, of course, we keep the core of Williams the same, that focus on small class interpersonal relationships where people can grapple with hard ideas and with learning as close to one-on-one as possible. Obviously, it's sometimes 5-on-1. In tutorials, it's a professor and 2 students in a classroom. But we do as much as we can to foster that interpersonal growth that comes from learning in small environments. But there's also a lot of change going on the campus, even as that core remains the same. And I thought I might just talk a little bit about some of the biggest changes that have come to Williams since I've been here and that we're continuing to work on that will likely affect the lives of your students over the next couple of years. So one of the biggest changes, and probably one of the things I've been most proud of myself, is the introduction of an all-grant financial aid program at Williams that replaced work study and loans in financial aid packages dollar for dollar for students, and from which we are seeing really tremendous positive feedback now over years as we survey students on financial aid. This really was a national leadership moment for Williams, building on a long tradition of access and affordability here, and trying to continue to meet the challenges of financial well-being for families as they go through their years here at Williams. The initiative was focused on promoting student opportunity and targeted relieving financial pressures on all of our aided students, but particularly middle-income families who've been in some ways left behind of financial aid programs over the last 20 years at other institutions and here too. And so this initiative was really targeted at that. And we do have heard very good things about the impact on families and particularly on students who are still working. Many of our students, both aided and not, have on-campus work. But it has reduced the number of hours that students are working, and it's allowed them to, instead of sending those dollars back to Williams, send it home to their families when necessary, or put away some money for the future to pay for graduate school, or take advantage of other opportunities that they want to take advantage of, particularly in the summer. In addition to financial aid, we've been moving forward some other key initiatives. I want to talk a little bit about athletics and well-being here at Williams. I mentioned our field house, our boathouse already. I want to mention our field house now. So athletics, or maybe I don't, clearly, so substitute in other words. Athletics, fitness, and wellness activities at Williams really offer our students so much, from leadership opportunities, development, mental health, well-being. Physical education at Williams has been a requirement for over 100 years. All students are required to participate, and that really comes out of a deep belief that to be a lifelong learner and a thinker, you also need to learn how to take care of yourself in multiple dimensions, and taking care of the body and the mind work well together. Currently, our focus is really on ensuring that our facilities can grow to meet the needs of all of our students, from our many varsity and club athletics to our physical education courses and to our recreation program. Our facilities, you may have noticed, on average are the oldest buildings on campus, and our successful teams are often successful despite the facilities, not because of them. And so we are in hard work to try to address that issue. You may have noticed, if you've walked through campus down to Mission, that there is a big a lot of bulldozers around and dirt being moved around, and that's because we're in the process of building a multi-purpose recreation center to replace the town field house that we pulled down last year. The multi-purpose recreation center is going to be an interim field house, and eventually also an indoor tennis court. And right now, we are also in a year-long program study, which is going to help us figure out permanent solutions and long-term planning for athletics here. So there's going to be more to come in this space over the years ahead, but we hope that that particular facility will be open by winter season of next year, so students who are currently on campus will be able to use it in short order, we hope. In addition, though, to physical well-being, we focus a lot on mental health here as well. And I think Gretchen may also talk about this, but I just want to say a couple of words about the fact that Williams, like colleges across the country, to continue to grapple with a well-known and intensifying mental health crisis among young people. So as a result of that, Williams has significantly invested in mental health services, and students have unprecedented access to staff counselors and telehealth services 12 months a year, beyond actually even what peer schools provide. But there is more we can do to help students develop skills to take on challenges and thrive. And so we're piloting an innovative new program here at Williams called Integrative Wellbeing Initiative for Sustainable Excellence, otherwise known as IWISE. And the goal of this program will be to teach students skills for their college years and beyond through a program that has 3 concurrent components. A PE course that will be offered to first-year students that focuses on fundamental well-being skills and the emerging science of what it takes to do hard things. And we think about the phrase IWISE, that sustainable excellence piece. What does it mean to be continually operating at a high level through all the challenging things you all do every day? How do you do hard things, and what is the science of that? And well-being skills tell us now. In addition, there will be a cohort learning program with a supportive cohort class that will take that class together, but then remain connected across years, actually. And that group will be, and this is the third component, facilitated by a trained staff of well-being advisors who will teach the PA course and provide guidance and serve as resources over time. And this comes from good science of learning now, which suggests that cohort learning programs are some of the most powerful ways to learn. So the idea is not just to learn a skill, but to actually practice it over time. This is going to be piloted next year. If it's successful, and we'll be assessing it, we will determine if we can grow it and at what scale in the future. But at least for next year, we're hoping a small group of students will begin testing whether this program can contribute a sense of resiliency and empowerment as they go through their years here. Just 2 other initiatives I want to talk about before I hand the mic over to Gretchen. In addition to the bulldozers that you may have seen in the Mission Park area, you may also have noticed coming in through town, there's fencing up. That in that area is where we're going to be building a new Williams College Museum of Art. This is actually a major curricular and academic priority at Williams. It's might be not the first thing you think of when you hear the word museum, but this is actually an academic and curricular initiative. I think of it as a home for the arts and humanities at Williams, much the way the very beautiful Science Center is for the sciences, or Sawyer Library is for the social sciences and the humanities as well. Actually, over half of our students take a course in art or art history before graduating, and there are courses across all of the departments. Literally every single department and program pretty much has at least one, if not multiple courses that draw on the art in the museum for some part of what they're trying to teach. And I give examples always of chemistry classes that teach pigmentation through using art in the museum, or environmental studies courses that use the art to talk about landscaping, and I could give you many other examples. So this is a teaching museum. In a moment, in our country when the humanities are often undervalued. I see this as a very important stake in the ground moment for Williams to emphasize the centrality and significance of the humanities in a generalist liberal arts education, as I mentioned, and one that well over the majority of our students will draw on and use. And so we look forward to cutting the ribbon on that building in 2027. And then the last initiative I thought I might mention here is one that is more one that we're working on, and again we'll, I hope, be able to launch by next January or potentially the January afterwards, which is a refresh of our winter study program. Winter study is a key part of a Williams education and dear to students, but it hasn't been really refreshed in many years. And we're working right now on growing the number of experiential learning opportunities, expanding the breadth of offerings for first-year students to lean into some of the areas that we hear that they are interested in growing and learning in, and very importantly for Williams, I think, expanding opportunities for alumni and students to work together and get to know each other. One of the secret magic aspects of this college, which may be a little bit less visible to parents, except for alumni parents. How many of you are alumni parents? Raise your hand. I got a few in the room. Okay, not too many. So one of the magical aspects of this institution is the alumni network that students have access to through our Center for Career Exploration and all kinds of other initiatives at the college. And winter study is actually one of these amazing times where students can take courses from alumni on a myriad of sort of practical learning and a wide breadth of expertise that alumni can bring to campus. And so we are thinking about the form of winter study and the way we offer courses as a way to think about bringing even more alumni back from a wider breadth of backgrounds, but also areas of expertise, most importantly, so that we can expand offerings for students and grow on this sort of special magic at Williams that I think both alumni and students really enjoy. So more on that to come over the next couple of years, but as I say, I'm hoping that by 26 and 27 at the latest, we will really be sort of doing a winter study 2.0. So with that, I'm going to end my remarks and turn things over to Gretchen, and then we'll open things up for questions at the end.
Thanks, Maud. Can people hear me? I can never tell. Yeah? Okay. So I'm really happy to see so many parents here today, and I'm having real flashbacks to the first parents' weekend I went to as a parent, and sat and listened to the president talk about all these incredible things that were happening. And I'm thinking about my 18-year-old son who wasn't even up yet. And it was probably around this time of the morning. Yeah. And, you know, I had heard nothing about the pluriverse or similar, about a new boathouse, about all the incredible things that were happening at the incredible college he went to. All I'd heard is like, I didn't do great on my Spanish test, and yeah, it's fine. Yeah, like, so, because I probably asked the wrong question, unlike Maud. I said, how's it going? And I got an earful, or not really. So anyway, so I just want to sort of say that experience is okay too. So if any of you are me when I was sitting out there, that's okay too, even though I didn't feel it at the time. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the calendar, actually, and where we are in the academic year. And this is really pitched at first year experience, but there's probably echoes of it throughout the class years. So we're really now in the middle of it. We like literally in the middle of the semester. Mountain Day's over, first days are over. We're expecting first years to know where they're supposed to be and to get their homework done, and you know, all that is ironed out. And in fact, next week, they'll be registering for classes, pre-registration for next semester. And I think intellectually, you know, when I was a professor, I'm still a professor, but I'm not teaching now. This is really the time when I think across all the departments, we've been exploring and talking about these incredible things. I don't know how many of you were here for the faculty panel a couple hours ago, you know, about ideas, and the physics was just blowing my mind about dark matter and all of this. But now is the moment when your kids have to actually produce something that's going to get a grade. They have to, it's not just kind of riffing and, wow, that book was awesome, and I never thought about things like this, and I dropped some food coloring into milk and watched what happened. We learned about that this morning. That now they have to actually sit down and take a test or write an essay and actually translate all of that amazing experience in the classroom into something that will be assessed. And that's a really different experience, and doesn't always feel quite as great because it gets a grade and it's not perfect, and you know, it could have been better here, or maybe you really missed some concept that now you've got to figure out. So now what? Now what? The students who come here, they got into Williams, they came to Williams. Your young people are just extraordinarily talented academically. They all are. Williams rejects a lot of students that would probably do fine here. And that your kids are here means they can do it. Like, I honestly do believe that. But yet, then how did they not do so well on their Spanish test? So, and what should they do now that they got the first, you know, bad grade of their lives? But don't panic, right? So what should they do? And I really want to encourage you to encourage them, whether it's going good, bad, or indifferent. This is the moment to reach out to their faculty, okay? Like, if it's going great, they love this subject, or they love something they're doing in this subject, maybe that faculty member has advice on what they should do next semester, you know? And it needn't be like, oh, take Spanish 2. Oh, you like, I don't know, when we talked about Spanish cities, maybe you should take a history class on the city, or you know, that professors can help your students make connections across the curriculum and chart out the path that's really going to be their path. If it's not going so great, you know, faculty are the first people to turn to, and whatever your kid has to say to them, honestly, they've heard it before. Like, really, we've heard a lot, and we've seen students struggle with a lot of different things. Some things that, you know, I had a student who just raising her hand to say something in class, that was, I mean, it was really, really, really difficult for her. And I do want people to talk in class, and we work together on different strategies of when she could let me know when she was ready to speak. But it was a real phobia for her. And it was very brave of her to come to Williams, because had she gone somewhere else, she never would have had to talk in class. So that's just an example, but it could be they never learned the past, they didn't understand the past tense in Spanish or whatever. But faculty really are the first place to start. And I know, because I was kind of the student myself, like, I'm not going to go see the faculty member yet. I'm going to wait until I do that paper that's late. I'll turn it in, and then I'll be ready to go talk to them. Or I can't possibly go because they know I missed class last week. I overslept. So, like, until I have gone like 11 times to class and they know that I can do it, I'm not going to go talk. Like, no. Like, go now. If you haven't done the paper, there's probably a reason you haven't done the paper, and the person to talk to about that is the faculty member. Okay, so I just want to, if you can pass that on, that would be great. And so I will say, so that, yeah, one, talk to faculty. But there's other people they can also talk to, or in addition to going to talk to faculty about academic struggles, and that is our wonderful academic resources. We have peer tutors, we have writing tutors, the languages have TAs that are native speakers, graduate students from universities in Austria and all over Spain and Latin America. I mean, really, we have people to shore up and provide support for your students. Economics has its own sort of whole system of students who've gone through these classes that can provide help. There's a quantitative resource center. So if you Google academic support, Williams College, you will get the page. You can they can make an appointment right there. And I will say one aspect of that department I'm really impressed with is Nick Hanford, who's our quantitative resources sort of coordinator and person. He does a series of workshops on and one-on-one appointments on things like executive function and what do I do when I have a paper due one day and an exam the next. He's got this like built out thing like, okay, 5 days before the exam, what do I do? 4 days before, 3 days. So he really, that's not such a content tutoring, but really the kind of structure of how to prepare and manage for demanding courses that are using your brain in really different ways, you know. So I would encourage your students to get in touch with that department. And the Writing Center as well, they do help with essays and things like that, but they also help with fellowship applications or other things that students might have to write. So that's another good support. Let's see, I got an off book here. So now looking forward, we talked about choosing their courses for next semester and how to do it. This is a great time for first years to keep exploring things. They might not have found something that they love, or maybe they just found something that's okay. That's all fine. I mean, there's almost nothing that they could have done that's going to be closing avenues off right now. I mean, I guess if they wanted to double major and go abroad for a whole year and be pre-med and pre-law, that might be tricky, but that'd be tricky no matter what happened in these first 6 weeks. But really, it is early days. So please encourage them to keep exploring and to keep going with things that they seem to be surprised by their interest in. Because that's really terrific for faculty to have in their classrooms and for your students to sort of put something together that's going to look like not just a major, but a set of questions they're interested in and have begun to explore over their 4 years. And that's as far toward a larger plan often as we can look at this point. I also just want to talk a little bit about Maud mentioned mental health, and I'll just talk a little bit about the kind of social experience at Williams and where students are around now. All first years are living in entries. By now they've met other students in their classes, but it could be they haven't yet found their people. You know, they haven't yet found their friend group or even though they are friendly with people. And I do want to say that's totally okay. It may look like everyone has, whoever everyone is, but it's really common that students haven't quite kind of settled in socially at this point. And there isn't a reason to obsess or worry about that. It's a journey. It's something that can take a little while. And when our kids are growing up, you know, who they're friends with, they're in school with the same group of people, you know, from like early in the morning until the afternoon. And then their parents may have a sort of social program that sets them in contact with people almost without their having much choice about it. And of course they find their own friends within that. It's just really different to be at college. And you know, they're living and learning and eating with people from all over the world with really different experiences and really different interests. And that's great. We want that, you know, and that we hope that, I mean, I don't know what we're doing up here if this isn't happening, but we're hoping that that really yields interesting friendships, interesting conversations, and an educational experience that even though we're up here in the Berkshires, gives them a little view of the range of perspectives and ideas in the world. So it takes time, but it will all, not everything's going to be absolutely perfect, but that wouldn't be the case if they were home with you anyway. So my own experience. But I do hope they're doing well, and it's just great that you've come to see them, and I hope you'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to open the floor now to questions. If you raise your hands, we can sort of see you, and then we'll repeat your question. So there's one right in front of me.
Hello, I'm William Steele, class of '64. We did ask our granddaughter how she was managing the workload, and her response was, compared to high school, it was less about quantity and more about quality. And she did go on to provide some evidence that she was being encouraged to read and think more deeply. So that was a good sign that she's in the right place.
Thank you. I won't repeat that because I hope you heard it, but please give him a round of applause. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We like to hear our students are digging in deep. That's always a great feeling. But I will just leap from that to say that some of your children might be overwhelmed by the work. That is part of learning how to manage work in college is one of the things that they're learning to do. I don't actually think that Williams faculty assigns more work. I worked at another place for 20 years before I came here. I don't actually think our faculty assign more work than other places, and I think they actually assign less than they used to, given some of the pressures that they've heard about from students over the last decade or so. But our students think they do, and that I think is, our students work very hard here. They're very earnest about their work, and they worry a lot about grades. And actually, I think one of the things I always say from the stage, and I've heard Gretchen say too, is we love it when parents help them not to worry as much about that to worry about learning and growing intellectually. And sure, if you're pre-med and you get a lot of C's in your first year, you might have to rethink what's coming next. That's possible. But there's a lot of things, and I know you know this, there's a lot of things that they're going to do after college that nobody's ever going to look at their transcript again, that the grades are actually less of what it's about at this stage, and it's really much more about what they're learning. If grades motivate them, great. That's a good reason to work hard among many, but ideally we're hoping what they're doing is learning. Other questions or comments? I see one back there. You might really need to shout. Yeah.
Ahead of the upcoming elections, I've knocked at some doors, and I've found myself talking to and listening to people who have very, very different opinions from my opinions. And I thought that as a parent, I've tried to teach my kids to have a point of view, to be curious, but I'm not sure I taught them to accept other people's opinion. And I was wondering what Williams does, if anything, to
Okay, so just to repeat the question, in a diverse community where people have different points of view, what is Williams doing to teach them to accept other people's points of view? I'm not sure we do teach them to accept other people's points of view, and I'm not even sure I know how to teach that. But I do think, ideally, built into our curriculum, what we are trying to encourage students to do is to grapple with alternative viewpoints, but even more importantly, ways of knowing, sources of evidence, right? A point of view is an opinion, and they all have opinions. I have opinions. You and I might disagree about those opinions, and we could maybe talk all night and not come to an agreement about a different point of view from each other. But what we're hoping that we're doing is exposing them to asking questions, to being curious, and exposing themselves to evidence that they might not otherwise have grappled with that might, over time, challenge a point of view. That's the best way, after all. I would like to think, I don't know you, but I would like to think if faced with a series of incontrovertible facts that actually challenged your point of view, you might change your mind. We're not in the business of changing their minds, but we are in the business of opening their minds. And that is I think, first and foremost, taking place in the classroom. And I have a lot of evidence of that from across the curriculum from talking to students. But I also have the other evidence, and I know this is on a lot of people's minds, and I hear about it, of, echo chambers. We all live and work in echo chambers, and students come in and engage in echo chambers as well. One of the things that they have here that most of us actually don't have is a very diverse set of other students that are coming from a very broad array of backgrounds. And so just by living together in dorms and being on teams together, in classrooms together, they are actually challenged to encounter people from a very broad array of backgrounds. And that is also part of the education and engagement. So that is at least the conceit, right? That we bring people together, and that part of the experience of living and studying together allows for what you're talking about. So thank you. I think there's a hand here.
Me?
Yes.
Hi. I think that you guys run different statistics in terms of demographics and different diversities, but I was wondering if you have possibly anonymous, right, surveys into diversity of students' thoughts and ideas and points of views, so that you are aware of what diversity in terms of ideas your demographic is, for no other reason than to show them other perspectives of the world that they already bring into Williams.
So the question was, do we survey students to get a sense of the range of their diverse, not just backgrounds, but ideas and what they think? Oh, and faculty and staff as well. I'm not sure we survey along those lines. I would say we do climate surveys quite a bit to sort of find out how people from a range of backgrounds feel about being here. And those are anonymous, and but we do a lot of surveying of all members of our community to find out what the experience of living and learning here is like. And we do make those public when we do them. So for example, this is just one of many, but we do a student senior exit survey on what the experience was like. And those surveys are available, assessments of them on the in the Office of Institutional Research. So we do a lot of surveying and try to make that as public as possible as part of the sort of wealth of materials that are available to folks interested in the college. Thanks. I think there was a hand here. Yeah.
Hi. I was really lucky to be able to go to classes yesterday, which was fantastic, and got to see small group learning in its element. And I have a junior, and she has, in the spirit of trying new things, picked up a foreign language this year, and has started to take Italian, and is having this really fantastic experience. And I realize this decision is sort of a fait accompli, but my understanding is that the Italian program is not going to be continuing. And can you help us understand a little bit about the rationale behind that and the ways to support? She won't be, I went to both 101 and 103, which is the second year class, and so she won't be able to take 103 next year. And what will be kind of offered for those students that had wanted to think about continuing, and will there be some alternatives, something like, the lunch table conversation groups or something for those students, or is Italian just going to fade out? I think is the question.
Yeah, so I've talked with a few students in the Italian program, and I won't so much talk about the decision not to continue it. Maud can speak to that if that's relevant. There is a program of sort of where students can remotely join join foreign language classes at other institutions. So we are looking into that for Italian. Italian is often offered at MCLA in North Adams, so that is another option. But I know there are students in this situation, and we're trying to figure out the best way to have some way for them to keep going.
I might just add, so the MCLA, they can cross-register, so that is something we can support them with. If there's groups of students interested in that, we can talk to them. Maybe we can talk offline about why that decision happened, just so we don't take everybody's time to talk about it. But I just will note that Williams offers about 6 language programs. Italian actually wasn't a program. It's a distinction here, but it actually matters as part of the decision. But hundreds of languages we don't offer, and so we try to support students who want to learn those languages in a myriad of ways, including study away and all kinds of opportunities. So if a student has a particular language they're interested in, we can talk to them about summer work, study away, sometimes cross-registration at other institutions, etc. Thank you. Yeah, there's a hand here and then here.
My question is going to be if you're using community planners in addition to architects for the new museum. And the reason I'm wondering about that is partly because they're often left out of the process. They're kind of part sociologist and part architect, as you may know. The Davis Center has an ablutions room, which I heard isn't quite suited to Islamic students who might be using it. And if you have planners who are interviewing people, how they would use that space, you can kind of avoid those missteps. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I hadn't heard that, so I'm sorry to hear that. So the question was, do we use planners when we do a building project, and are we for the new museum? The answer is yes, actually. These program studies we do go pretty deep and at least try very hard to engage with constituents across the campus for what the needs are and to try to best meet those needs. And in fact, that very specific room came out of those discussions. I'm sorry to hear it maybe in final form isn't quite meeting the mark, but I think actually the Davis Center in general is a good example of how much those listening sessions really did reflect what we heard back. So a good example that is working for is the kitchens there. So students telling us that they wanted places and spaces where they could cook together. And that's just one example. I could give you many more. So in fact, we do a lot of that outreach. The one thing I will note, and again, I can't speak to that particular issue, but is that students, it's actually one of the great challenges of building on a campus is you do all of that work, you build the thing is a permanent thing, and then the student needs change. And that actually does happen a lot. I could give you so many examples of things we have here that came out of a very thoughtful process that really went deep on the current students, and then either the world changed or students' needs changed or something else changed that made a prior building structure be like, why'd they build that there? That $100 million project that's there for the next 50 years. So that is, it's actually one of the big challenges is you have to sort of do current programming and then a lot of sort of future thinking. And that's why, just as a side note, you'll see a lot of colleges and universities building flexible spaces now, things that have on wheels and with walls that go in and out, and rooms where you can put the chairs up and turn it into a dance hall, and then put the chairs down and it's a lecture hall, and then the chairs are on wheels, so it can be a seminar room, and you can drop a wall down and it can be another. And schools are doing more and more of that because it's become so challenging to sort of plan for the future while also planning for current needs. But I appreciate the point, and it's a really good one. Thank you. I think there was a question here. Yeah.
So our daughter is a junior this year, and she loves Williams. The holistic approach that she is going through is fantastic. She is going through the classes. Her grades are improving every semester, and she is also a part of all the clubs. So she has taken a decision that she is going to go with a double major rather than go abroad for the whole year, and that is included in the curriculum. Next summer, she is going to go for an internship, which is only a 6 to 8 weeks program. And that is not, I believe, enough to really learn a culture of a company. And for that, you need more time, like a co-op opportunity. And that is not yet allowed within the curriculum, that you can take 6 months and go for a co-op program. Do you think in the future there will be an opportunity for students to choose a co-op program here?
So the question's about co-op programs and the possibility of getting credit for work experiences off campus. We could probably have a long conversation of the benefits of those programs, some of which are terrific, and there are schools that are quite famous, like Northeastern, that has built an entire year-long program and really changed its profile as a learning institution because of that. I don't actually see that coming at Williams for all kinds of reasons that have to do with its particular investment in liberal arts education, and I think we offer the very best pre-professional program you can get. But I think that because of what I think about a liberal arts education. It isn't really a school that is directed to creating any kind of pre-professional paths in that way. There are others you could think of, except through summers and winter study. So we do, and we've been growing those opportunities significantly, but you're right, they are limited in time. So I think we are
Just
out
popping
of
in
time.
to say maybe we'll have time for one more quick question.
Did you want to say anything about that one?
Oh, just that I hear you with that and the limits of short internships. So I think it's a valid concern. I would echo Maud in the curriculum being a great preparation, but I think I'm amazed by the leadership positions that students have here, that I think a lot of what they do in the co-curricular and extracurricular space translates well into career. It's not exactly, but it is another piece of the puzzle that a liberal arts college that's small enough for lots of people to shine can provide.
So I know we're running low on time. Do we have time for one more question?
We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Is there one more question in the remaining 3 minutes?
Yes or no question?
Okay, wherever. I'm hearing it. Over there.
I loved hearing about the museum and the hub for arts and humanities, especially bringing together STEM and encouraging and fostering that sort of interdisciplinary aspect of it. Where can I get more information about that? Is there a great person?
About the museum specifically? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So the best place actually to start is we have an amazing online conversation about the new museum. The director of the museum, Pam Franks, is, I think, quite a visionary, actually, and she's really leading the charge on this. So I would be very happy to connect you with her and some of the people who are working on developing out that project. But her name is Pam Franks. You could actually just write her directly, but you could also write me and I can connect you if that would be helpful.
Also, I would just say in the old museum, which has some amazing exhibits right now, but one is a mock-up of the new museum. There's a three-dimensional, you can go in and look at it, and definitely right across the hall is, I'll just put a plug for Pallavi Sen. She's a art professor here and has an amazing one-room exhibit that students actually help contribute to. So you can hit both of those after lunch.
So thank you, everybody. Really
Thank you
appreciate
all.
your time
Great
and
to see you.
your children. Thank you.